No way! Are you f***ing kidding me? Final Fantasy XIV's Yoshi-P says, if the question is whether I was shocked by the mixed reception to DAWNTRAIL's story, the answer is no, not really. What? I had already predicted that we would have some sort of mixed response this time. Okay. So you knew it wasn't good. You knew that everyone wouldn't like it. Well, okay, let's just read the article. Final Fantasy XIV DAWNTRAIL has had some time to simmer in the minds of its fan base. While I've had a blast with everything outside of it, this isn't normal. The main scenario questline left me a little less enthusiastic than usual. The issues it has, though, are complex ones. DAWNTRAIL's story is one of those pesky mixed bags that gets stuck in my craw. What? It's full of, this is just really a weird way to put this. Full of great ideas with some really fun moments. But its plot beats and dialogue are both executed in ways so messy they nearly spoiled the whole exercise. Ultimately, DAWNTRAIL suffers from a bumpy script and an inability to properly prioritize its cast, which is a shame. Fair. That is fair. I recently went to Gamescom and got to speak with the game's director, Naoki Yoshida, in person. I asked how he felt about the fan base's response in slightly more diplomatic terms, and he seemed quite reflective of the story's successes and failings. As is typically the case with these interviews, Yoshi-P's responses were translated on the spot by an interpreter. This being a game, it's a form of entertainment, and you'll always see some form of mixed response to entertainment. Yoshi-P begins. Yeah, okay. A second factor is that with Endwalker, we reached a big climax to a long-standing, spanning story. To a certain extent, I had already predicted that we would have some sort of mixed response this time. But what does DAWNTRAIL have to do with that? Like, you're kind of dodging the question. Yes, okay, so Endwalker was a big climax to a long-standing story. That doesn't have anything to do with the new story that you told with DAWNTRAIL. It doesn't mean that just because you have told a good story just then, it doesn't mean that the next one is going to be bad. Because we had Shadowbringers before Endwalker, which was very good. And then Endwalker was a very good base game story. So, I feel like he's dodging the question a little. So if the question is whether I was shocked in a big way, the answer is no, not really. See, I'm shocked by him saying this. It's interesting to hear that Yoshi-P was expecting some kind of conflicted response. And entirely fair, considering the sheer weight of expectation that all timers, like Shadowbringers and Endwalker, had placed upon its shoulders. The way Yoshi-P tells it, however, the main bugbear through DAWNTRAIL's development appears to have been pacing. He says, the concept was journeying to a new land. We would be going to a new continent where we'd be seeing new cultures, new races and characters. Because of that, both in the development team and also from my side, we had this concept in mind in terms of very cleanly and very attentively introducing these new aspects to the player. Cleanly and attentively. What does that mean? Okay. However, Yoshi-P notes that while there were plenty of people who enjoyed the New Horizon, others found the pacing to be less than optimal. There were some people who thought that some of the tempo in the main scenario was slow, and they wanted to get through to more thrilling parts of the plot at a faster pace. He then goes on to, it wasn't that, it was slow. Well, it was. Actually, no, it was. But it's just that there weren't Like, the stakes were muddy. And I say this all the time. You don't need high stakes to tell a good story, but you need clear stakes. You need the reason you're there to make sense. You need to be invested in the other character's development. You need to see the progress. Brandon Sanderson has described this as the problem of when you're writing, if a story is unsatisfying to the reader, generally you can point to one of the three problems. Because what you need, the three elements that you need to tell a good story is promises, progress, and payoff. So you want to make a promise of what to expect, set up the expectation of what we want to see. Along the way, you need to see that progress every step of the way. How did the characters respond to the situation? How did they overcome this? What did they learn from that? And that's the chunk of it. That's the meat of it. And I think that's one of the main reasons that so much of DAWNTRAIL lagged, was because we weren't seeing a lot of progress. It's just events occurring in the most convenient way so we can move on to the next quest. And then payoff, which is everything coming to a head, you know, everything getting resolved in a satisfying way that makes sense according to the progress we've seen and the setups that we've had. It's that promise that we had in the beginning, getting the fulfilled. Anyway, I'm not here to go on a huge tangent about this. He then goes on to admit that there were some story beats that the team could have diverted to the side quests, so anyone was interested in learning about them, then they could just play the side quests at their own time and enjoy it at their own pace. He said that there's parts of the main story that should have been side quests. We did see feedback from people who wanted to tackle the battle content faster. So because we saw that type of feedback, we will take that on board as a learning process and experience. Y'all, please work on telling a story through battle content that you're like, talk to me while I'm fighting. Let me fight the enemy and the NPC is talking out loud with VA while I'm doing that. We need more combat than 2 seconds of combat in 4 hours of gameplay. Yoshi-P also commented on the mixed feedback regarding Wook Lamont. While she's become a scapegoat for everything wrong with DAWNTRAIL's story, that's true. That is true. My general opinion is that she's fine, but a walking bag of symptoms for its other shortcomings. I think this is completely fair. Who wrote this article? Harvey Randall is based. So base. She's a representation of the difficulty DAWNTRAIL has prioritizing its characters, and that she takes the center stage while other characters like Kryl, Erenville, and the Scion suffer. For Yoshi-P, one of the issues he's observed from the community was that characters' initial difficulties in fulfilling the role of prospective Dawn servant. Which typically manifested in bouts of seasickness, which she didn't have in 6.5, by the way, even though she gets on and off boats like 4 times, and a spotty knowledge of her people's culture outside her home city of Tyrell. We depicted Wook Lamont as someone who had a bit of a complex toward her parents and also towards her siblings, and because of that confidence, I think that also contributed to the slow pace. The lack of confidence that contributed to the slow pace and feeling of frustration. A complex toward her parents and siblings. If we had maybe portrayed her as more of a confident character. No! No. Maybe we would not have encountered that kind of situation. In that regard, I feel that we did something quite bad for Wook Lamont as a character. Oh my god! And taking on this experience. Holy shit. It made me realize that it's important to consider those things when it comes to showcasing the character to the other player. I can't believe this. I can't believe what I'm reading. But Yoshi-P, go find Ishikawa right now. I don't know how much time you have left to work on the patches. Go find her. Take her from whatever she's doing right now. Get her on the story immediately. Please. And another thing. If you had portrayed Woklamat as a confident character from beginning to end, she would have still been flat. You need growth. We want to see the growth. It's the growth. It's the storytelling that's the story, is seeing them grow from being one way, and then by the end they fulfill the potential that you saw was there all along. Yoshi-P is not a writer, you know? It's just, I can't believe he actually admitted that they kind of failed with the character writing. Oh, ultimately, I think I'm in agreement with I can't believe this. I'm actually shook right now with PC Gamer contributor Daniela Lucas when she says that DAWNTRAIL's endgame outshines its story. I'm very much enjoying the wrestling kayfabe, what is that, of the Arcadian, and I'm downright salivating at the chance to get back into an exploration zone. Something I felt was really missing from Endwalker's patch cadence. While the story is deeply important to FF14, it's nowhere near everything. And the actual game I'm going to be playing for the next couple of years is solid. The exploration zone is what I'm most excited about too, actually. This is the thing, because I don't really want to raid. So for me, this is the most exciting thing. But this isn't going to happen until, I don't know, 6.3, most likely, which is in a year. So, I mean, 7.3. 7.3, I meant. Wow. Bear in mind, it's just Yoshi-P's words. They're probably digesting all the criticism and trying to understand what the common complaints are. True. Character developments. Greater than all in stories. They need to focus on that. I also think that the actual dialogue writing was too on the nose with what she was constantly just blurting out her motivation. Like it was meant to be filled in with actual dialogue later. I also kind of got the sense that some of the dialogue felt like placeholder text that needed another draft. Like someone needed to go through and communicate that information, but in a more interesting way. So like, you need to go through it and make it, you know, add the life and spark to all this stuff. It felt like an early draft in a lot of cases. Wow. See, they're working on it. True. Actually, yeah, that's kind of my takeaway from this as well, Cat Jix. FF14 is not doomed. Okay, it's actually true. If Yoshi-P had been like, fuck you, actually, DAWNTRAIL was really well written, Woklamat was an extremely well written character, and I don't understand the feedback, and it never dragged, and people just, you know, they didn't get it, and I don't understand why. If he had said that, I would be like, this game is fucked. It's over. It's Jover. But he didn't. This is good step. This is really good step. He listened. They just thankfully he's acknowledged the major issues, and that gives me hopium for the future. However, I'm also a little bit annoyed and upset. As glad as I am that he's admitted these problems, I'm a little annoyed and upset because it's not like he didn't see the story while they were making it. Okay? He was there. He's the director producer checking it the entire time. And so, how many people checked the story before it was released and gave feedback? Was that listened to? what changes were made. The fact that he is able to say, yeah, I kind of expected there would be a mixed response is completely unacceptable. If you have a story game and you're selling the game for the story and you say that's the main selling point for the game, if that's your main selling point to the point that you will not let players skip to endgame and you require them to go through 400 hours of story because it's a story game, then if you know you're about to release a main expansion that you think people won't all like, that should set off alarm bells for you. That should be red flags. That should tell you, holy shit, we need all hands on deck. I'm worried about our story. We need to get our shit together so we can make sure that everybody will like the story, or at least I will expect a good reception from it. So I'm a little bothered by that. This should not be, if the story flops for your game, that's a story game, that should be a huge shocker and surprise to you. Because everybody poured their heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. Okay? That's kind of my take on it. So I'm a little bothered wanting to know what happened behind the scenes. I know that... I guess for me, I just don't want them to take it for granted that players will just like it. You gotta work for that, you know, you gotta earn it. And it's okay, like, for him to talk about this like another player would is bizarre. So, yeah. We need a behind the scenes of DAWNTRAIL. I would love to see it, actually. I'd love to see what happened. Because another thing I'll tell you that had me kind of concerned before DAWNTRAIL even came out, and I had the feeling like Yoshi-P wasn't that confident with the story even then. I remember that people were asking him, is this the beginning of a new saga? All the time. And he kept saying things like, well, we'll see how players react to it, and then we'll go from there. Like, we don't really know. You know, we have some different ideas, but we're gonna check the player feedback, and then if people like it, we'll proceed. But if they don't like it, and that made me a little concerned even back then, because I'm thinking, what the fuck? You're already this worried that people won't like it, that you've got plan B, C, D, E, and F for all those situations. Even then I was starting to feel like, that's odd. But, yeah. Anyway. I kind of like DAWNTRAIL's story. I said it was a step back from the last two expansions. Again, I think he figured Endwalker was something difficult to follow up, and truthfully it was. It doesn't matter if Endwalker was difficult to follow up. Nobody expected DAWNTRAIL to be on the same level of quality as Endwalker or Shadowbringers. No one expected that. We all had set pretty low expectations for it, and I myself certainly did. But for me, even with my low expectations, I was still very, very disappointed, to the point where I was actually shocked that I felt the quality had dipped so much. And so for me, I just feel like it released in a completely unacceptable state. That's my opinion. Anyway, I am going to move on. Chaos 2 Carries, thank you for the gift sub. That was crazy interview. That's a shocker. Low stakes story doesn't mean low quality. Exactly. I feel like they actually panicked halfway through and lost confidence. We move on from the Scions, but by then they're all just back for increasingly contrived reasons. Contrived is the word I would use to describe pretty much the entire explanation. Contrived is the word I would look for. Anyways. That interview came out of nowhere, so I had to address it.